Well, let's talk about Chevrolet, the big snowstorm.
Well, when we were living in Chevrolet, then we had a major snowstorm, which is unusual for that area of the country to have so much snow, and basically they don't have that much equipment, that many snowplows or things like that to clear the roads, so the roads all filled in and piled up, and so we were kind of snowbound, and our daughter Deb tripped and fell and hit her head and put quite a gash across her eyebrow. And we talked about it and we figured it's just going to have some stitches and we can't drive. So I called and the ambulance came around and it managed to get through to our house. And so I took Deb and got in the ambulance, and back in those days you didn't have a paramedics and EMTs riding in the ambulance. What they had was they called them apprentice firemen, and they were high school age kids that just drove the ambulance. The idea was to get the person in the ambulance, get them to the hospital as fast as they could where they could get treatment. So there was these two kids that thought they were having a great joyride, driving the ambulance in the snowstorm. And we started out for the hospital, and we came to a place where there was a big dip in the street, and it was filled in with snow pretty deep, and they were going to drive through it. And I kept telling them, don't drive through it, don't drive through it. But they went ahead and buried the ambulance, so the snow is up to the bottom of the windows all around. And so that ambulance was going to be stuck there for quite a while. So I crawled out through the window and took Deb and wrapped her in a blanket, and I walked out through the snow out to the highway, and there was some vehicles on the highway, and there was a semi on the highway, and I stood out in front of him and waved, and he leaned on the horn and all that stuff, but he did stop, and he asked me, like, what are you doing? And I said, you're going to take me to the hospital. And he said, okay. So I gave him directions, and he got through to the hospital and dropped me off, and I went in and they stitched Deb up. That was no problem. Now the problem is getting home, because there's very, very few vehicles moving, and I had to get a ride home. And as people were coming into the emergency room by ambulance or by police car, then when that person would leave, then they would say, is anybody going in such and such a direction? They'd give people rides home, because there was several of us there that needed a ride. And finally there was a police car that was headed my direction, so I went with them. And they gave me a ride up to the end of our street, and I said, don't go up our street, it's still really deep, so I'll carry that child on up the street. So I got home. It was 8 hours from the time I left the house till I got back, but we got Deb stitched up, and so that was an interesting day.